Ayodhya as we continue to discuss every possibility of what is happening in Ayodhya. Events unfolding. The latest in so is the final picture of that Ram Lalla Virajman finally there in Ayodhya. Kartik Sharma here with me. Kartik, the pictures on your screens, pictures that people have been waiting for a very long time, have now been unveiled.
Oh, absolutely. You know, the deity's form has been sculpted by a person from Karnataka, and if you look at deity, the deity is in a Bal Mudra. Deity has been carved out from a particular stone which has a color called sham. Indian gods generally are not have a combination of both
A dusky
feminine and manly features. For example, the most beautiful avatar of Vishnu is feminine in nature. They have movements like this, which are generally associated with femininity, but then the gods are supposed to imbibe the best of two, like Ardhanarishwar, Nataraj, if you look at them. So the deities, the form that has been that will be pratishthat on 22nd, and something which has been put in the sanctum sanctorum of the temple, with the word which we use is sthapit, not consecrate, because the land itself is pure, because the Lord was born there. I think maybe people would have expected this to have happened on the 22nd, but on that day. But the deity itself now being available for people to see, I think it's going to break the net.
Okay.
You know, something which people had been waiting for such a long time. People were talking about it. People were waiting for it because the Prime Minister will be there, Mohan Bhagwat will be there. You know, entire
coterie of
government
officials,
in
people,
this country,
absolutely,
they are going to be there.
The who's who of the government.
Who's who the government is going to be there, and now it's part of for the public gaze. The deity of Lord
Ram Lalla.
Ram Lalla, yes, the case was Ram Lalla Virajman.
I have to say Ram Lalla.
Yes, Ram Lalla Virajman was the case. So for it to be there, I don't know how the religious, because we don't have a clergy, it's not like Islam, how the people associated with the function is going to respond to it, because वो कहते हैं ना, पर्दा भी उठाना पड़ता है, प्राण को प्रतिष्ठित करना पड़ता है. Now this photograph is out, it's there. I think it's beautiful. You know, I'm falling short of words. It's beautiful. It has come unannounced, the deity of Lord Ram, you know. But yes, one of the members said, you know, they wanted to go for the whiter part of the complexion. But then most of our gods are not white. The gods are not white. Gods are of sham color.
So let's spend a minute talking about that. You know, Indian gods usually depicted in a very dusky to dark colors. That is exactly the origin of us as people of this country. And most of our idols are expected to fall in line with that. And I think this idol that people have been waiting for many, many years, some would say hundreds of years, finally has come out, open for people to look at it, open for people to finally, you know, pay some sort of devotion that they've been waiting for such a long time.
When you use the word dusky, Indian gods are not Gora gods. एक हिंदी में शब्द होता है श्याम. कृष्ण श्याम रंग के थे. भगवान विष्णु को श्याम रंग में देखा जाता है. शंकर को श्याम रंग में देखा जाता है. हमारी जो देवी होती है, she is also not white, fair. If you look at our Devis, some of them are black, like Tara. Kali. Some of them have a yellow hue, Baglamukhi. So you know, some are old, Dhumavati, some are young. So you know, the variety, or I would say the diversity in our the so-called sacred complex is immense. But a lot of people say that, you know, the whole focus is on Ram, who is the who's not the complete avatar of Vishnu. Krishna is supposed to be the complete avatar of Vishnu. कहते थे कृष्ण 16 कलाओं में निपुण है, पूर्ण. Ram 12 कलाओं में निपुण थे. But then the word is Ram is अनुकरणीय. You can follow Ram. That is why you say Maryada Purushottam Ram. You never use that for Maryada Purushottam Krishna. Or you never say Siyavar. You never say, the word is Siyavar Ramachand ki jai. The God himself is also feminine. A lot of modern feminists have blamed, the way Sita left. But then if you look at the other side of it, Ram is the only God who can be referred via the feminine side, which is through his wife Sita. You don't say Shiv, husband of Parvati. You don't say Vishnu, husband of Lakshmi. But you say Siyavar Ramachand ki jai. So that is one part of it. The second part of it is that Ram, despite knowing that he had godly sense, was tied to the rules. So even when he had to fight and make his way into Lanka, he worshipped Lord Shiva. But the Krishna on the other hand would say, I am the God to Arjun, मैं खुद भगवान हूँ, and he shows him the cosmos during the war. So there was chal and kapat as one of the kalas of Krishna, but Ram deployed none. He suffered for it. The chal and kapat were done by Kekai, but it was Ram who went for the vanvas, despite knowing it was chal and kapat. So that way, the story of Ram is very, very powerful. And you see, though the various political dispensations have tried to contest it in their own way, but they couldn't stay there for long. In 2007, the UP had to change the affidavit. I broke that story. They had written it, the mythological figure Ram. It was on Ramasetu, that the corridor which the DMK was trying to build for a port development. Setu Samundram, if I am not wrong. And the minister was Ambika Soni. She was heading the Department of Culture because she was also part of tourism. And the affidavit was changed in the Supreme Court of India. So I would say...
So more than just mythology, it's people's belief.
People's belief, and I would say, and last
and
part,
Hindu philosophy.
I don't know how to put it. You are the better person, Kartik, who will be joining us, will be able to take through. Ayodhya, a lot of people think, is just being developed as a religious site. There is, I'm sorry how to put it this way, but there's commerce to it,
Of course.
There's an economy of pilgrimage. There is like Kashi Vishwanath corridor. So you have thousands of people coming to Banaras, and that money is coming. So there's a business side to it,
of course.
like Jagannath Puri corridor. So the business side of Ayodhya, that's how I would like to put it, or the sort of economy which is being built is 10 times more than what you can imagine, or what Banaras corridor has done for the Kashi, or for the people of Banaras. So the Ayodhya,
this will be an economic corridor.
You have airport,
in times to come.
You have a modern train station, modern entire city has been rebuilt. It's like the urban renewal mission on steroids. It's like that, and people underestimate the economy of pilgrimage. When you redo these sites, you are talking about circulation of your own money. Prime Minister say, you tell me if I would like to go to Bali, or I'll stand in the queue and take a permit for Lakshmi. Maybe I'll go for Bali, it's easier than that. But in my family, everyone would like to go to Kashi Vishwanath corridor, because pilgrimage is a different exercise.
Absolutely.
So there is a business side to Ayodhya, and that is why, as very rightly, I must give credit to Rakesh Kar on this, our English class editor. It's about both Vikas and Virasat. You see, these words are not being used by him, but all the major politicians are saying, ये संस्कृति का मामला है, राष्ट्र का मामला है, मंदिर राष्ट्र का है. They are not saying Hindu समुदाय का है. So there is Vikas, which is development, and there is Virasat, which is culture. So, we have to, since we are talking about Lord Ram, we have to place him in the contemporary context also, Shweta.
All right, and Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath is speaking on Ayodhya.
But he's not giving any interviews.
He's not giving, but he's speaking. He's at a press conference. Let's quickly listen into that.
प्रोग्राम के और बिना किसी उसके अगर लोग थोड़ा सा धैर्य रख करके अपनी बारी का इंतजार करने के साथ यहाँ के लिए कार्यक्रम के अनुसार आएंगे, तो किसी को भी असुविधा नहीं होगी. इस प्रकार की व्यवस्थाएं यहाँ पर की जा रही हैं, और प्रदेश सरकार, स्थानीय प्रशासन इसमें भरपूर सहयोग करेगा. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
कोई रजिस्ट्रेशन पोर्टल भी होगा ताकि ऑडियंस को
सभी चीज़ें इसमें की जा रही हैं। स्थानीय प्रशासन के साथ लोकल स्तर पर हम लोग इसकी व्यवस्था कर रहे हैं और प्रदेश में हम लोगों ने इसके लिए बीट प्रणाली भी लागू करने के लिए कहा है, जो निचले स्तर तक लोगों से संवाद बना करके उनको लाने और उनको व्यवस्थित तरीके से दर्शन कराने में योगदान दे सके।
जिला स्तर पे किस तरह की सुविधाएं लोगों को?
देखिए, हर प्रकार की व्यवस्थाएं होंगी, उसके लिए हम प्लानिंग कर रहे हैं। जैसे ट्रेन्स आएंगी यहाँ पे, ऐसे ही लोकल स्तर पर हम राज्य से बसेज की व्यवस्था की तैयारी करेंगे। नहीं, ये श्री राम जन्मभूमि तीर्थ क्षेत्र न्यास इसके बारे में तय करेगा और जब से वो तय करेंगे तब से दर्शन की प्रक्रिया शुरू हो जाएगी।
The Chief Minister of UP, Yogi Adityanath. What an appropriate moment. Kartik Malhotra also with us here in the studio. Hi, Kartik. It is a significant moment. It is, as you know, Kartik rightly pointed out, it is about Vikas. It is also about Virasat and what it will result in when, as far as Ayodhya is concerned. You know, every time there's been development religiously, it has been followed by economic development, which is what is also happening in Ayodhya. We are seeing massive investments being made. This could be potentially a pilgrimage corridor in India very, very soon now.
No doubt it will be. And look at also geographically where Ayodhya is positioned. How far is it from Lucknow? I think it'll take you just about an hour or so from Lucknow to get to Ayodhya. From Prayagraj, you can get to Ayodhya. Overall, I mean, there is obviously a geographical context to the location of Ayodhya, but I think more importantly, this entire concept of temple economy has been around forever, not just in India, across the world. You go to Jerusalem, you go to Bali, that Kartik was referring to, you know, you go to any of these pilgrimage sites, they actually attract a lot of tourists belonging to a certain religion, and also those who are just history buffs and fascinated with religion, whether or not they follow it, to just go and visit those landmark locations, landmark areas anywhere in the world. Look at Indian examples, for example, you know, look at Puttaparthi, where Sai Baba's temple resides. Look at Shirdi, look at Tirupati, look at Vaishno Devi, look at Vaishno Devi, right? Look at Ajmer,
infrastructure.
look at Ajmer Sharif. So there are enough and more examples within India where temple economy is pretty much driving the economy of that region, giving employment to people, making, you know, shops flourish, making garland providers and prasad makers flourish. So overall, you know, this whole temple economy has been a very, very old concept. It hasn't yet, at least in my lifetime and the little history that I have read, been at the scale at which we are seeing it unfold in Ayodhya. We are talking about highways, we are talking about the airport, we are talking about investments coming in by way of hotels, hospitality. We are talking about airlines making announcements already to start commercial operations into the city.
Right.
So I think at one level, of course, there is this physical infrastructure which the government has built by way of road connectivity, rail connectivity, Vande Bharat trains, you know, making a pit stop at Ayodhya, if not as the final destination. But at the same time, I think over time, it is going to attract private investments. If it
has
continues
already
to be,
come to think of it.
course,
You've got big celebrities buying massive, you know, pieces of land near Saryu.
Yeah, correct. So there is so that is private investment, of course, right? But you will also have corporate sector investment by way of 5-star hotels, by way of restaurants, by way of you know, hospitality, shopping complexes, malls. I think the whole area is bound to flourish now, and it's just that temple economy, as I said, has been an existing concept. The scale at which Ayodhya is likely to develop is unprecedented to my mind.
Absolutely unprecedented, and the development, of course, continue. We keep tracking all those details for you here on News9. Pictures on your screens right now.
Can I add one thing
yes,
to it?
Kartik.
You know, you spoke about Jerusalem. You know, 50% of the tourist sector of Israel is around either the Jerusalem, you know, the areas where the Christ last walked, or it's in the West Bank, Bethlehem, you know, where the Christ was born. Two places. And you know, you have people from South America to India, from Goa to America, either in Jerusalem or in West Bank, Bethlehem. That's one. And the second part is there is also another I would say uniqueness to the Hindu pilgrim sites, and that is it becomes both religious and cultural. Like, for example, you go to Banaras, then, you know, you'll come out and you would like to go to the Chaatwala and come back. You know, there are different experiences which get inbuilt. You would like to take a ride on the boat and come back to the ghat again. So, you know, the food economy, then you have that small vendor economy, which in terms of small artifacts, everything gets inbuilt. So when we are talking about Ayodhya, there are other types of economy which are being built, which is in terms of food, small services and other things you are going to buy. And yes, you are bang on. Earlier the connectivity between Lucknow to Ayodhya or from Ayodhya to Allahabad and Banaras was not nice. It would take me 2.5 hours to reach Ayodhya, and then you would cross that small bridge. It was very tough. You know, Ayodhya was I remember I wrote an article, it was like a decaying city because there was nothing much. Now for Ayodhya also becomes a tourist hub. A lot of people from different ideological perspectives said you have transformed a religious and sacred site to a bigger tourist or site of an economy. But in a modern world, you can't deny those aspects. As he rightly pointed out, even in earlier ancient times, you had temple economy. You had people investing in those temples. They were like the banks. So both things happened parallelly. I think it's in the Victorian India where we disconnected the temple from the other side of the business which it was involved with. If you go to Madurai, you come out of the temple, the busiest food street is bang opposite.
So, all I want to add to what Kartik is saying, and I think this is something that the government should be considering already, because there are enough prototypes available within India to actually take lessons from. The biggest challenge that Ayodhya had faced up until now, and I visited Ayodhya, I think last about 4 years ago, the biggest challenge is the streets are narrow. The streets to the Ram Janmabhoomi go through these little narrow passages, hardly motorable, and if there is one car going in, there is absolutely no room to maneuver even for pedestrians or cyclists, leave alone another car coming. Add to that the whole sort of, the hilly terrain up to the other temples in the Ayodhya vicinity outside of Ram Janmabhoomi. Again, very difficult to motor your way through.
Absolutely.
But there are examples of how, when you talk about tourism as a larger concept and temple tourism as a specific concept, there are examples with, let's say, Amritsar. What Amritsar, the Gurdwara, the Golden Temple, that entire area has become only a walkway.
Yes.
You cannot take your vehicles inside.
Absolutely.
Look at Taj Mahal, look at Agra, Taj Mahal.
You've got
you
to park.
have to park, you take a
Absolutely.
ghoda gari or you take a rickshaw or
you
you
walk.
walk it. There is no other option. So I think at one level, all of this is going to add to cleanliness. All of this is going to add to convenience of those who want to go ahead and visit the temple, and just make the environment that much more peaceful and serene, if not from a religious perspective, then definitely from a tourism perspective.
I think very rightly put, I'll again go back to Jerusalem. You go to the old city, you can only walk. There are no cars inside there.
Absolutely.
You can't even use your motorcycle there except the residents. So everyone, thousands of people who come there, they only walk.
I mean, look at the Vatican City for that matter. The Vatican City is pretty much a country within that, hardly about a kilometer or so of radius. You cannot enter. You've got to park outside.
So there is absolutely. So there is an opportunity here, and whether that opportunity would be utilized by the government or not, that is to be seen. But what sort of footfall are we expecting, Kartik? Massive, thousands, lakhs of people on the first day itself?
I think lakhs of people, but I think they will be regulated. For I think first 4 months, it's going to be regulated. It's going to be, I think, 5 to 10,000 per day. It's something like that. Because see, the temple complex has been prepared, but there is no place to stay in Ayodhya.
Okay.
There are no hotels in Ayodhya.
So no overnight stay?
You have those lodges and you have those old age houses. There are no hotels. Unlike Banaras, there are no hotels in Ayodhya. You don't have big hotels neither on the Faizabad road or the road which can connect Ayodhya to Gorakhpur or Allahabad or Banaras. So that way Ayodhya is not like Kashi. Ayodhya is not like Kashi. Ayodhya is not like Amritsar, where you have infrastructure already available. So first thing first, they will need to build infrastructure. In the earlier parts of Ayodhya's life, I would say tourism will originate from Gorakhpur or Lucknow and will come back. It's like day's trip. But unless and until you build hotels there, like a sort of a hotel city like Aero City, something like that, we will have to wait for that. For that, a lot of things will need to be acquired.
So public-private partnership, I think that is what we're looking at, Kartik, going ahead.
Most importantly, there has to be this government will, the intent of the government to make sure that coming to Ayodhya, the city, and then specifically to the Ram temple, just needs to be very easy to navigate.
Seamless.
There has to be convenience, there has to be comfort, there has to be safety. All of these aspects have to be built in. I think it should not just be one moment of joy where, you inaugurate the temple and then you just leave it open and people can just come in, go out without these basic conveniences, services being made available. I think that focus will have to come from the government. Those incentives will have to be provided by the government. Land acquisition will have to be enabled by the government. And it's only if all of this ecosystem comes together will you see any sort of private or corporate capital coming in.
Absolutely.
Until then, I think the ball definitely is in the court of the government, and the government will have to have a fairly large concrete policy framework in place to lay out this sort of, roadmap or this blueprint of development of the region. Not just Ayodhya. I would repeat, it's not just going to be Ayodhya and the vicinity of the Ram temple. Everything around it, right? So like coming from Prayagraj with further leads over to Banaras or coming from Lucknow on the other end, I think our people flying in directly or taking the train directly, I think this entire region will have to develop for the temple economy to flourish, for the city of Ayodhya to flourish, for people who have been living in Ayodhya, hoping, many of them, I would say, hoping for this Ram temple to be built one day, waiting to find employment opportunities. I think all of that will have to be created, because just the temple alone is not going to cut it for the larger problems that loom large in that area. We will have to look at employment, we will have to look at safety, we will have to look at comfort of tourists, we will have to look at the entire infrastructure ecosystem coming up.
Tirupati, I've been to Tirupati, so I can describe Tirupati. There's a part of Tirupati where it's closed, it's environmentally well taken care of, but you don't have much hotels or lodges. You have those private rest houses by big corporates, and then you go to the city, which is like you can stay there, you have 5-star hotels. The food rules don't apply there. So Tirupati, there is a Tirupati model. So I don't know whether the Tirupati model is going to be applied in Ayodhya or not. I have no idea. But Tirupati
what sort of model do you think will be applied?
I think
what are your
I think Tirupati model is a very good model. See, there are a lot of people who would like to go, but they would like to come back and sleep in a 5-star hotel. There are different types of people who come to pray. There are people who would like to stay next to the temple complex. Big corporate houses over a period of time have built their guest houses there. It's not available to everyone.
Absolutely. But you have a fascinating understanding of that geography. So I want to understand from you, as far as adjoining cities to Ayodhya is concerned, what are the possibilities of development of those cities? When you talk about 5-star hotels to the economy of quick service restaurants, because infrastructure at this point in Ayodhya doesn't allow for it to be dug out and dug in within a day's time. So for the entire the system to develop, or for that entire chain to develop, what sort of cities do you think will play a good role?
It's a good question, because Ayodhya is one place which doesn't have a satellite city. And Ayodhya in itself is not a city. It's a small town. That's the word. It's not a city, it's a small town. And Ayodhya will be required to be rebuilt. You will need to rebuild Ayodhya. And most of the construction of Ayodhya has been last 100 years. So you don't have a lot of ancient construction in Ayodhya. The topography has been built over a period of time. So Ayodhya will go through layers of construction and development. And most important of all, basic amenities will need to. Ayodhya is surrounded by agricultural land. Let us understand. It's not like Noida next to Delhi. It's not like Rewari next to Gurgaon. It's not like Navi Mumbai. It's not even like Tirupati. Tirupati is on a mountain top, and then you have a town. From the town you can see Tirupati. And then you go to Tirupati, it's a biosphere. You don't carry plastic there.
Right.
So you have to, आपको कांच की बोतल ले जाना पड़ता है. So I mean, say what sort of eco rules will apply there? I don't know in Ayodhya, but Tirupati you have eco rules. You don't. There's no. You don't get those small plastic bottles. You're not supposed to carry plastic. It's a plastic-free zone. So you carry your own bottles to Ayodhya. People are coming down from various parts of the country. Most of them, when they come out of the airport, they have all bottles. So the people are going to the Tirupati town. So I think ecologically conscious Ayodhya is the best Ayodhya, because ultimately a massive tourism or a big tourist site generates.
Absolutely.
But then I think today's
big story,
today's
the big development from Ayodhya is the Ramlala Virajman photographs that have now emerged for devotees to finally see their deity on your screens at this point in time. We keep bringing you all those details on News9. Time for a short quick break. We'll be back in just a bit.
Ram's Ayodhya rebuilt. Ramlala's Pran Pratishtha. Countdown to January 22nd. Dateline Ayodhya. Catch the mega coverage only on News9 Live.
Since the last 2 years, Khalistani terror groups are threatening Indian diplomats in Canada, US, UK and Australia. Investigations of these threats led us to the first ever abduction and killing of an Indian diplomat, Ravindra Matre, in UK's Birmingham in 1984. Our months-long investigation finally led us to the murderer of Ravindra Matre, who has been hiding in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir for the last 40 years. Watch our exclusive documentary, Murder of an Indian Diplomat, where we reveal the man who killed Ravindra Matre.
Stop searching, start streaming. Download the world's first news OTT, News9 Plus, ahead of the curve.
$392 pillars, 44 doors. Prime Minister prays ahead of the big moment. Special rituals in Ayodhya. All eyes on Ramlala.
पूरी दुनिया उत्सुकता के साथ 22 जनवरी के ऐतिहासिक क्षण का इंतजार कर रही है.
Pran Pratishtha. Rolling coverage. Only on News9 Live.
20,000 people dead and counting. What's happening in the United States of America is unprecedented. You will have to pay for this.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Business Plus. As a part of our ongoing coverage on budget, the Union government, remember, has started the budget making process and is expected to focus on women's welfare with at least a 30% year-on-year jump in gender budgeting in line with the September 2023 Delhi Declaration under G20's India presidency. As per various newspaper reports, the Modi government, remember, has gradually raised the total gender budgeting amount, the amount for the schemes related to women across ministries, to 2.23 lakh crore rupees as of the budget of 23-24, from less than 1 lakh crore rupees about 10 years ago. There is a renewed focus on gender budgeting following inclusion of gender issues in the G20 New Delhi's declaration on 9th of September 2023, the enactment of the Nari Shakti Adhiniyam, the Women's Reservation in Parliament and State Assemblies Bill, and the mention of the inclusion of Finance Minister, inclusion of women by Finance Minister in the maiden budget speech on July 5th, 2019. What sort of focus will budget have on women and women-related policies? Let's discuss that. Joining us is Rituparna Chakraborty, co-founder, Team Leads. Kartik Malhotra with me here. Hi, Rituparna. Thank you very much for taking time out. I want to first begin by asking you, ma'am, what sort of expectations do you have from the budget? This is an interim budget, so we do understand if the hopes are not very high, but government has constantly, battled for youth, women and OBCs. That has has been a focus area for the government. This is an election year as well. What are your expectations?
So the thing is, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. The thing is that every dysfunctionality that an economy like India goes through, it hurts women disproportionately more than men. So if we have lesser cities or lesser job magnets in the country, it hurts women more than men because it's much more difficult for women to migrate than it is for men. And I can give you formalization. There are more informal women workers or workforce than there are men workforce. So what essentially I'm trying to say is that we have to take a broader approach towards this. I mean, the dysfunctionalities that are broader dysfunctionalities have to be addressed for women, for us to achieve the goals that we are looking for women in India, which means improving the overall female labor workforce participation, increasing their share in the formal workforce, increasing the per capita earnings of Indian women, and so on and so forth. So I've been seeing a lot of gender-based budget allocation, but sometimes I do worry and I do wonder how much of it is actually translating, or is there some kind of correlation that one can possibly draw in terms of changing some of these broader metrics, which until unless we change, we're doing lip service. So my concern would be that the steps that we are planning to take needs to be in conjunction with what women really need and want. I mean, the issues about women are broadly around access to the right kind of skills in education, feeling safe, which means safety is a particular issue, whether they have the ease and opportunities to be able to be considered for different kinds of, which means equal opportunities, whether they have the healthcare opportunities or possibilities that women want. I think these are the primary buckets.
Right.
If we can start with those and dig deeper. To be honest, India needs more smart cities in the country because we need women to have jobs. I mean, it's infrastructure challenges, for example, in India hurt women more than men. Men can just take out their bike and men have other options.
Absolutely. And before we delve deeper into some of these, and before I go to Kartik, I think I also want to understand from you, from what you alluded to, there's been a lot of gender budgeting and schemes related to women around girl child. In your assessment, has there been any sort of movement or change on ground when it comes to more women in workforce? What have you picked up in the last 10 years since the budget has literally doubled as far as women budgeting is concerned, a budget which is only for women? Has there been some sort of a change on ground when it comes to more inclusion of women in workforce?
I mean, double on a base of what is obviously something is a matter of consideration. Like between the previous year and the year before last and last year, the increase has been just about 2%, I guess. So we need to keep things in perspective. Now, whether I'm not someone who's equipped to tell you whether you can draw a correlation between the budget spend and whether that's making a change in the lives of women. But are there macroeconomics which are indicating some progress for women? Of course there are. I mean, while India still remains one of the lowest in female labor workforce participation, some of the recent data suggests that we've made improvement. But we are yet to touch the 1985 level where women workforce participation were above 35-37%. So what I'm saying is, if you're going to ask me the question on increments of progress, I think there are opportunities. Even COVID has unlocked some of those opportunities, flexibilities, whether it's work from home, even some of the labor law changes which actually now allow women to work 365 days in sectors, especially in manufacturing and in factories, which earlier wasn't the case. So there has been some positive movement, but we really need a tsunami of changes for women to really benefit.
Absolutely, tsunami of changes, Kartik, needed for women to actually progress. I mean, come to think of it, we've been picking up from what government has been saying so far. So it's not just going to be a development on the back of women, but a women-led development. That is the narrative, the way it's panned out.
So I think, that is something that Smriti Irani said at Davos, and yeah, it's an interesting play of words. It's not going to be a women-centric development, but a women-led. So, and yeah, I mean, a leading woman politician saying that, obviously, it makes headlines.
Absolutely.
And perhaps for the right reasons. But I agree. I think, it's got to move beyond lip service. I doubt there is going to be something very substantial coming out for anybody, not just women, for anybody in this budget, because it is a vote on account. It is largely, historically at least, the vote on account budget has been a statement where the government just takes approval from the parliament to go ahead and make those additional expenditures as regarded, as required on a prorate basis. But if you keep that aside, what should the budget typically do for women? I think, number one, there has to be a clear distinction between what the budget will do for rural women or women in the farm sector versus urban women. So I think that one clear distinction has to be made. It cannot be a budget where you're only looking at doubling the income of women farmers or women landowners in the farm sector. It should not be, an extension of or some sort of a greater allocation towards the Mahila saving schemes, the certificate,
so beyond financial
on which you can invest about 2 lakh rupees once in every 2 years. So I think it'll have to go beyond that. I think at some level it is required that the Indian government and the finance minister become a little creative with the way we approach the problems that we want to solve. And for that, I think the biggest problem that we need to solve has to be identified, which to my mind is girls dropping out of school. And that is something which the government has to focus all its energies on. Can the government get creative and say that tuition free in any case is exempt from income tax, right? So that is one part of the story. Now, can the government go ahead and become a little creative and say that if you educate your girl child up to standard 5, standard 6 to standard 10 will be taken care of by the government. It'll at least ensure that we have more number of girls at least continuing education till class 10th, and this becomes all the more important in tier 3, tier 4 cities, if not rural areas, where the dropout for girl children happens on an average in grade 8th.
Absolutely.
So can we ensure at least another 2 years of education for the girl child? Add to that, of course, skill development centers where you are able to create girls or young women who are ready to be absorbed by the work as part of the workforce in the manufacturing sector. ITIs, for some reason, have more participation from boys than from girls. So I think at some level we have to fundamentally get creative with how do we improve enrollment into education, how do we ensure that education is sustained over longer periods of time. Add 2 years, 2 years, 2 years, every year you will, within 5 years, 6 years, be in a situation where girls are graduates and become more employable. And at the third level, of course, it is about these male-dominated sectors like manufacturing, where women should definitely enter and literally break the iron ceiling there.
All right, break the iron ceiling very, very creatively, not the glass ceiling, break the iron ceiling. Rituparna, Kartik, I think, has very beautifully divided it, women-led development, but how do you really begin? You begin with schooling, you then go to dropouts, then you go to skill development, you ensure proper sanitary hygiene, then you also ensure women in workforce and women who have dropped out of workforce, allow them to have a room to come back, and perhaps those would be, and that is how you would be able to allow more women to flourish in economy. What according to you, ma'am, should be the key focus areas for the government this year? What are the biggest challenges that women are facing today?
All of the above, of course, are important. But interesting aspect about India and education, the women in India. If you look up statistics, actually education levels of women in India have year-on-year improved. And this is urban-rural put together. Interestingly, the impact of that in urban India has been that there has been a reverse reaction or a reverse correlation with their participation in the labor workforce. So sometimes you do wonder what it is that's happening in India, where with education, and of course studies show that education is used as a proxy to find a better groom, and so on and so forth. So, and I mean, there's a demand for well-educated women, and so it's a little tricky, of course. But do we need more education? Definitely, because we've seen instances that between the household have to choose between educating a boy or a girl, that households are incentivized for obvious reasons to educate the boy rather than the girl. So government can start with creating incentives which enable or which nudges and pushes families to kind of encourage the girl child to send. I mean, I'm a big believer that just don't dole out, subsidies and cash in the bank accounts. I mean, rather than giving them the fish, what women need is an ecosystem which teaches them how to catch their own fish. And from that perspective, investing incentive schemes, which kind of encourages families and also women themselves feel encouraged to enter the workforce and to get themselves education is essentially a key aspect that I can think of. Those incentives are very biased and lopsided in India. In India, it just prima facie looks as if it's just better to kind of bet on the male child than on the girl child. So, and of course, there is a very clear divide between rural India and urban India. So what works for rural India is clearly not working for urban India, because the challenges which women who are educated and in urban India are very different from those in rural India. Rural India women latch on to informal work much easily. That's not the case in case of urban India. So I guess there has to be a holistic approach, but I don't think any of this can be solved through a budget. We are talking about a broad policy making approach, which actually helps, and it's not just a budgetary concern. It's something which needs a lot deeper thinking and investment of time and effort to actually figure out what's the trick. Yes, of course. I mean, the budget can actually announce incentives which for specific skill set, for example. If STEM is one area where we need more women, manufacturing and diploma holders, for example, needs more women who are skilled, then can we come out with creative incentive policies which encourages them to kind of be there? So even if it's in terms of incentives to get skilled, or when they join the workforce,
I agree more with you. There is obviously room to get creative, and I think just one point I'd like to add in the interest of time here, Shweta, if you'll allow me, is that we have still at some level achieved some degree of success when it comes to financial inclusion. I think the next logical step from here has to be financial empowerment. And how I define that is, how can you make sure that women in India don't just own bank accounts, but are actually empowered to also have the first name on the properties that they buy, jointly perhaps with their husbands, to own more cars on their own names, not just husbands buying cars which women could drive as well. I think that entire gender divide between ownership and empowerment, or inclusion and empowerment and equity, has to come.
Absolutely.
So make acquisition of houses more attractive for women. Offer them an even better interest rate if they are the first owner. Reduce the registration fee on houses which are registered on names of women. Give a road tax concession or give any other incentive to women who go ahead and buy cars. Overall, there is going to be more economic value that families will see in, and the entire patriarchy that India continues to battle with will see when it comes to letting women get financially empowered and not just financially included.
Absolutely, not just included but empowered. I think that is how we are going to leave it at. Rituparna, thank you very much for taking time out and for joining us on that story.
Thank you.
And shifting focus now, Union IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnav today, remember, announced that semiconductor manufacturer Micron, which is setting up its plant in India, will roll out first chip in the country by December this year. Giving an example of Micron, Vaishnav said that Micron facility has moved ahead so fast and everyone has been pleasantly surprised. Ashwini further said that the agreement was signed back in June of 2023. The construction started in September of 2023 and the first made in India chip will be rolled out in December of this year. How and far we have come as far as India's strides in semiconductor mission is concerned and its own ability to manufacture its own chip. Let's talk about that. Ashok Chandak, President of IESA, joining us at this point. Ashok, thank you very much for taking time out, sir. Micron's success is something that perhaps many other companies in India and NVIDIA could also perhaps emulate going forward. First chip by end of this year. Does that timeline look even feasible?
My view is it is definitely on the fast track. Even as soon as the project was announced, within 90 days, the all construction, every activity has started. Obviously, these are a very long gestation project. So it's always tough and challenging to complete everything within 9 months or 1 year time. But what I understand from the statement from Minister as well as the activities of Micron, it is definitely on a fast track. So whether it is a December 24 or January, I think it does not matter. From my perspective, it is a major milestone. It is getting execution done on a so fast track basis is very, very, very encouraging and very important from the overall semiconductor policy for the country. So I would say that this is a very, very important good news, which is moving forward. And second thing, what you mentioned, what Micron has done, it is the first breakthrough, I would call, and this is a major game changer activity within the semiconductor industry. And many more such announcements are happening parallelly, more to happen. And India is becoming a very clearly attractive destination for the electronics and semiconductor manufacturing. So this is very, very important breakthrough, actually.
Hi, good evening. If I can come in here, I'm Kartik. I want to understand from you, what should be India's priority right now when it comes to the overall semiconductor industry? Should India look at manufacturing of semiconductors, which Micron is doing and which even Foxconn has been in talks with Vedanta, which did not go through, which Tata Sons is investing in, with Hiranandani Group is investing in? Or should India's focus be more on the designing of semiconductors and providing semiconductor-based solutions as part of our already very, very highly evolved and respected IT services industry? Examples there being HCL and Infosys's latest acquisition of Insemi, and HCL now saying it is in partnership with Foxconn looking at design and looking at R&D and assembly. What needs to be India's priority, manufacturing or design?
My view is India's priority has always been design so far. However, what we are looking at a future scenario, which is design-led manufacturing. And this is very important. Look at the electronics market itself. It is growing to $300 billion in India by 26-27. And large part of that is being supplied through semiconductors.
Okay.
And semiconductors should not be seen as only an electronic chip design. Mind you, semiconductor manufacturing involves chemical industry, it involves a lot of logistics, it involves the gases, and it involves the wire bonding and other stuff.
Right.
So holistically, if you look at, this industry is going to enable several additional industry elements. And looking at the global semiconductor industry, which is going to grow to almost $1 billion by 2030, that means out of that, about $400 billion will be raw materials, gases, and chemicals.
Okay.
So if we develop the semiconductor industry, I think our guys are able to export to the global counterparts.
Okay.
And this is where I would like to see the big picture. I know that many times people think semiconductor may not be a priority, but to me, it is strategically very, very important for our country.
Okay.
And not only that, it is important to look at a more long haul. You have to look at a 10 years and 20 years time frame going forward. And you have to see how this enables the other industry sectors as well, so that it contributes not only our domestic consumption, but also gets into kind of exports.
All right.
And also, to be noted is, India has been traditionally import intensive on semiconductor and electronics. And you see that last 3 years, the electronics have changed. So now we are becoming more export intensive on electronics. Similar thing are on card, I would say, for a semiconductor perspective as well. So in 5 to 7 years time frame, you would see that we will start exporting semiconductors in a big way, and the chemicals and gases and other parts also. We should not forget that.
Right. So 76,000 crore rupees, which is the government's outlay as incentive for the semiconductor industry. Mr. Chandak, do you see any increase in that outlay in the budget that the finance minister is likely to present on the 1st of Feb?
I think my view is first priority should be to get this 76,000 crore itself assigned and consumed. Because
How much
right now
of it
we
has
have
been
seen
consumed,
only one
sir?
announcement.
Could you share some figures with us? To what extent has the budget been consumed so far?
No, I think only Micron announcement has been concretely approved and moved on. That's about maybe 13 to 15% of the total, roughly around that. So there is still plenty of amount which.
All right. I think what Mr. Chandak was saying, that there's a lot of amount which is still up for grabs.
And just 13 to 14%
just 13,
of that
14% has been
76,000
consumed
crores
by
has been
Micron.
Right.
So other applicants,
But we
of
have
course,
seen
would be
other
likely.
applications as well, Allied Materials being one of them, and now all these joint ventures that are getting formulated and signed between HCL and Foxconn.
HCL and Foxconn,
so that
yes.
should also, to my mind, be part of some sort of an incentive for the semiconductor
And that
industry.
incentive perhaps will flow on from the semiconductor mission plan that India has set out. There is an outlay there up for grabs, but JVs are still being formed. Micron has been successfully able to get a share of that pie. India semiconductor story unfolding itself. First chip perhaps likely to come by the end of this year. We'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for watching.
392 pillars, 44 doors. Prime Minister prays ahead of the big moment. Special rituals in Ayodhya. All eyes on Ram Lala.
पूरी दुनिया उत्सुकता के साथ 22 जनवरी के ऐतिहासिक क्षण का इंतजार कर रही है.
Pran Pratishtha. Rolling coverage. Only on News9 Live.
A defiant performance by Ten Hag's men. Now standing at 7 feet 4 inches, Satnam Singh is making his way into professional wrestling.
We are getting more good news for India.
जानना है तो देखिए, समझना है तो सुनिए, सीखना है तो पूछिए, और कमाना है तो खरीदिए। जानकारी, सलाह और निवेश सब एक ही सुपर ऐप पर। पैसे का सवाल है तो जवाब है Money9। आजादी पैसे की। अभी डाउनलोड करें।
It was my 14th birthday.
On birthday, daughter waits
home missing father.
He was carrying a cake for his daughter.
49-year-old Birmingham-based
Indian diplomat vanishes.
He was grabbed and bundled into a car by 4 assailants.
KLA claims responsibility for Kashmiri separatists.
Makbul Bhatt's release.
गोली मारो और फेंक दो.
And within 3 days, they shot him dead.
Abducted diplomat.
Found murdered in Leicestershire.
I said, who ordered to kill him? To me, he said, I ordered it. And he never came home.